Jason's backpack hit the ground with a thud, but the pain in his chest was far worse. Had he really just been expelled, just because he was a farmer's son? Principal Carter's cold words echoed in his head, "This school is for respectable families. You don't belong here." Holding back tears, Jason walked home, dreading the look on his parents' faces. But the next day, as a Billionaire's helicopter roared over the school, every single student and teacher froze in shock. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. Jason gripped his backpack tightly as he stood outside the principal's office, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never felt more humiliated in his life. Principal Carter's cold, piercing gaze bore into him, making him feel small and insignificant. "You don't belong in this school, Jason," the man said, his voice dripping with disdain. "This institution is for students with real potential, from respectable families. Not for farm boys." The words hit Jason like a punch to the gut. He had always known he was different from the other students at Westbridge Academy. While they arrived in fancy cars wearing designer clothes, Jason showed up in second-hand sneakers, smelling faintly of the soil he helped his father till every morning before school. But he never imagined he would be thrown out just for that. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. "I work just as hard as anyone else," he said, his voice shaking. "I earned my place here with my grades." Principal Carter smirked. "Grades alone aren't enough. We have a reputation to maintain, and students like you, well, let's just say you lower the standard." The office door swung open, and 2 security guards stepped inside. Jason's stomach twisted as he realized what was happening. "Escort him out," the principal ordered. The guards grabbed Jason's arms, dragging him toward the exit as students in the hallway stopped and stared. Some whispered. Others laughed. He spotted Mason, the richest kid in school, leaning against the lockers with a smug grin. "Guess you finally got what you deserved, farm boy," he taunted. Jason's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. By the time he reached home, his parents were already waiting on the porch. His mother's eyes filled with worry, while his father's face was grim. "They expelled me," Jason mumbled, his throat tight. His mother gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. His father let out a heavy sigh and pulled Jason into a firm embrace. "We'll figure something out," he said, but Jason could hear the uncertainty in his voice. That night, Jason lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, anger and shame burning inside him. He had done nothing wrong, yet he had been tossed aside like he was worthless. He wished, just for once, someone would stand up for him. Someone with power. Someone who could make them see that he mattered. The next morning, just as classes were about to begin at Westbridge Academy, a deafening roar filled the sky. Students rushed outside, shielding their eyes against the sunlight as a massive black helicopter descended onto the school's front lawn. The blades sent powerful gusts of wind rippling through the crowd. Teachers exchanged confused glances. Principal Carter stormed outside, his face red with frustration. "What is the meaning of this?" he barked. Then, the helicopter door swung open, and the entire school went silent. The entire school stood frozen as the helicopter's powerful blades sent waves of dust and wind through the air. Students shielded their faces, their hair whipping around wildly. Some whispered, others pulled out their phones, recording what was happening. Nobody had ever seen anything like this at Westbridge Academy. The school was prestigious, but even for them, a billionaire's helicopter landing on their front lawn was unheard of. Principal Carter's face twisted in anger as he stormed forward, his voice barely carrying over the deafening noise. "Who authorized this? Who do you think you are?" he bellowed, trying to maintain control of the situation. But nobody was listening to him. All eyes were locked on the helicopter's door as it slowly swung open. A man stepped out, his presence commanding immediate attention. He was tall, dressed in a sharp dark suit, his shoes polished to perfection. His sunglasses reflected the stunned faces of the students and staff. Behind him, 2 more men in expensive suits followed, their expressions unreadable. But it was the insignia on the side of the helicopter that sent a shockwave through the crowd: Kingston Enterprises. Everyone knew that name. It was the largest agricultural corporation in the country, controlling massive industries from food production to land development. The man standing before them was none other than Samuel Kingston himself, one of the wealthiest and most influential figures in the business world. Principal Carter's anger faltered, replaced by a flicker of nervousness. He adjusted his tie, clearing his throat as he stepped forward. "Mr. Kingston," he said, forcing a polite smile. "This is certainly unexpected. How can I help you?" Samuel Kingston didn't reply immediately. He removed his sunglasses, scanning the crowd with a sharp gaze before finally speaking. "I am here for Jason Miller." Gasps rippled through the students. Jason. The farm boy they had laughed at just yesterday. The same Jason who had been thrown out of school in disgrace. Principal Carter blinked, caught off guard. He let out a forced chuckle. "Ah, Jason. I see. Well, Mr. Kingston, I am afraid he is no longer a student at our institution." Samuel Kingston's eyes darkened. "I am aware," he said. "That is why I am here." Jason's name spread through the school like wildfire. Those who had mocked him now looked at each other in disbelief. Mason, who had taken particular pleasure in Jason's humiliation, shifted uncomfortably, the smirk wiped clean off his face. Inside his home, Jason was still in bed, staring at the ceiling. He had spent most of the night replaying the events of the previous day, the humiliation cutting deep. His parents had tried to comfort him, but their words did little to ease the ache inside. He had worked so hard to earn his place at Westbridge, only to be tossed out like he was nothing. Then, he heard it, the unmistakable roar of a helicopter. The entire house trembled slightly from the vibration. Jason shot up in bed, his heart pounding. Who in the world would be landing a helicopter in their small town? His father was already at the door, his face pale with confusion. Jason quickly threw on a shirt and ran outside, his breath catching at the sight before him. Parked right outside their modest farmhouse was the same helicopter that had just landed at Westbridge. And stepping out of it, with the kind of presence that could shake mountains, was Samuel Kingston. Jason's mother clutched her husband's arm, her voice barely a whisper. That is Samuel Kingston." Jason could hardly breathe as the billionaire locked eyes with him and took a step forward. Jason felt frozen in place as Samuel Kingston walked toward him. The billionaire's presence was overwhelming, his movements precise and controlled. His expensive shoes crunched against the gravel of the farmhouse driveway, and Jason could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. His parents stood beside him, their expressions caught between awe and confusion. "You are Jason Miller," Kingston said, his voice carrying authority. It was not a question, it was a statement, as if he already knew everything about him. Jason swallowed hard, nodding. "Yes, sir." Samuel Kingston studied him for a moment before glancing around at the modest farmhouse, the surrounding fields, and the rusted old truck parked near the barn. His eyes returned to Jason, and then, to everyone's shock, he extended his hand. "Your father is Benjamin Miller," Kingston said, turning slightly toward the older man. "We worked together many years ago." Jason's father hesitated before shaking his hand. "Yes, sir," he said. "I worked on one of your early agricultural projects when I was younger." Kingston gave a small nod. "And from what I understand, your son was expelled from Westbridge Academy yesterday." Jason felt his stomach drop. The shame of that moment returned, along with the humiliation of being thrown out like he was worthless. He glanced away, clenching his jaw. "Yes," he admitted quietly. Kingston's expression remained unreadable. "Tell me what happened." Jason hesitated, but his father gave him a reassuring nod. Taking a deep breath, he recounted everything, the principal's unfair decision, the way Mason and his friends had mocked him, and how he had been dismissed as if he did not belong. By the time he finished, his hands were balled into fists. There was a long silence. Kingston turned to one of the men standing behind him, a tall, sharp-looking assistant. "I want a full report on Westbridge Academy's board and administrative history." Now. The assistant nodded immediately, pulling out a tablet and typing. Kingston turned back to Jason, his gaze intense. I do not tolerate injustice. Your father was one of the hardest working men I have ever met. And if you have even half of his determination, then Westbridge made a grave mistake. Jason's father's eyes widened. Sir, I appreciate you coming here, but... Kingston held up a hand. This is not about appreciation, Benjamin. This is about setting things right. He turned back to Jason. Get in the helicopter. Jason's breath caught. What? Kingston's tone was firm. You are coming with me. We have unfinished business at Westbridge Academy. Jason's mother took a worried step forward. Sir, what exactly are you planning? Kingston glanced at her with a calm but unwavering expression. I am going to make sure your son gets the future he deserves. Jason exchanged a stunned look with his parents. A day ago, he had lost everything. Now, one of the most powerful men in the country was standing in his driveway, telling him to step into a billionaire's helicopter. Jason took a deep breath. This was insane. This was impossible. And yet, deep down, something told him his life was about to change forever. The roar of the helicopter blades filled Jason's ears as he strapped into the leather seat. He could hardly believe what was happening. Just yesterday, he had been humiliated and expelled, feeling like a nobody. Now, he was sitting beside Samuel Kingston, a billionaire whose name carried more power than the entire school board combined. As the helicopter lifted off, Jason glanced out the window. His parents stood below, watching with expressions of shock and uncertainty. His mother clutched his father's arm, as if unsure whether to be proud or afraid. Jason swallowed hard. He had no idea what awaited him, but he knew one thing. This was not just a ride. This was a mission. Kingston sat calmly, reading something on a tablet while one of his assistants whispered updates to him through a headset. Jason could feel the weight of his presence, every move he made was calculated, every word carried importance. After a few minutes, Kingston turned to him. Do you know why I am doing this? Jason hesitated. Because you knew my father. Kingston nodded, but leaned slightly closer. That is a part of it. But there is another reason. I do not believe in wasted potential. He tapped the screen of his tablet, turning it toward Jason. You have a perfect academic record. You scored higher than 99% of students in the state on your exams. You are not a troublemaker. You were expelled because of prejudice, not because of anything you did wrong. Jason's eyes widened. He had known he worked hard, but hearing it spoken like that, as if his value was undeniable, sent a strange rush through him. Kingston continued. I built my empire from nothing. People like Westbridge's principal believe success is only for those born into privilege. They think they decide who deserves opportunity. They are wrong. Jason clenched his fists. For the first time since his expulsion, he felt something shift inside him, not just anger, but a deep sense of purpose. The helicopter began its descent. Jason saw the familiar rooftop of Westbridge Academy growing larger beneath them. The school looked just as imposing as ever, its stone walls and massive front entrance designed to intimidate. Students and staff were already gathered outside, staring up in confusion and awe. Some pointed, whispering to each other. The moment the helicopter touched the ground, Kingston unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out with the confidence of a man who owned everything he walked upon. Jason followed, his heart pounding. Principal Whitmore stood among the crowd, his face pale as he recognized the man approaching. Kingston did not slow down. He walked straight toward the man who had thrown Jason out, stopping inches away from him. I assume you know who I am, Kingston said, his voice calm but sharp. Whitmore swallowed hard. And Mr. Kingston, Kingston cut him off. You made a mistake. A very expensive one. He turned slightly, his gaze sweeping over the gathered students, teachers, and board members who had come outside. This school claims to shape the future, yet it discards hardworking students like Jason Miller without a second thought. The principal tried to interject. Sir, this is a misunderstanding. Kingston ignored him. He turned to one of his assistants. How much is the largest donation ever made to Westbridge Academy? The assistant checked a file. 1 million, sir. Kingston nodded slowly. Then, in a voice that carried across the entire courtyard, he said, I will donate 10 million today, under one condition. Silence fell. Everyone stared at him, waiting for his next words. He turned back to Whitmore. You will reinstate Jason Miller immediately. And you will publicly apologize. Whitmore's face turned red. Mr. Kingston, that is highly irregular. Kingston's expression did not change. You have 5 seconds to decide. Jason stood frozen, watching the most powerful man he had ever met take control of the very institution that had tried to destroy him. Principal Whitmore's lips parted, but no words came out. His eyes darted between Kingston, the board members, and the sea of students who were now recording the scene with their phones. The entire school was holding its breath, waiting for his response. Jason stood motionless, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Was this really happening? The man who had thrown him out, who had called him an embarrassment, now had mere seconds to reverse his decision or risk the wrath of a billionaire. Kingston checked his watch. 4 seconds. Whitmore cleared his throat. Mr. Kingston, I understand your concerns, but these matters require proper. 3 seconds. Sweat formed on Whitmore's brow. The other board members shifted uncomfortably. The weight of Kingston's offer, and his power, pressed down on them like an iron fist. 10 million was a fortune the school could not afford to lose. 2 seconds, Kingston said, his voice even but the warning unmistakable. Whitmore inhaled sharply, then let out a forced chuckle. Of course. We would be honored to welcome Jason Miller back. This has all been a misunderstanding. His voice trembled slightly as he turned toward the students and staff. I deeply regret any unfair treatment Jason may have received. As the principal, I take full responsibility for this oversight and officially reinstate him, immediately. Jason's stomach tightened. The apology sounded rehearsed, hollow, but it did not matter. He had won. Kingston did not react right away. He let the silence stretch just long enough to make Whitmore sweat even more. Then, with a small nod, he gestured toward his assistant. The paperwork will be sent to your office. Make sure it is processed today. Whitmore nodded quickly, wiping his forehead. Yes, of course. The moment he stepped back, the students erupted in whispers. Some of them grinned at Jason, others looked completely stunned. He could hear bits and pieces of their murmurs. I can't believe this. He got expelled yesterday, and now he's back. A billionaire just fought for him. Jason exhaled slowly, trying to process what had just happened. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been humiliated in front of the entire school. Now, he had returned in a helicopter, backed by one of the most powerful men in the country. Kingston turned to him. This is not just about coming back, he said quietly. This is about what comes next. Jason nodded, unsure of what to say. Kingston had saved him, but he had a feeling this was only the beginning of something much bigger. The billionaire looked at his assistant and gestured toward the waiting helicopter. Let's go. We have work to do. Jason hesitated. Wait. I have to stay, right? Kingston smiled slightly. You can if you want. But I am offering you something better. Jason's stomach flipped. Better? Kingston stepped closer, lowering his voice. I am funding a new scholarship program for students like you. Students who work hard but are overlooked. You will be its first recipient. Jason blinked. What does that mean? It means you will not just be returning to this school. You will be moving forward. I want you to train under my team, learn from the best. Education is important, but experience is what sets leaders apart. You have potential, Jason. And I intend to make sure you use it. Jason felt his throat tighten. A part of him wanted to stay, to prove to Whitmore and the rest of the school that he belonged here. But another part of him knew the truth. This was bigger than Westbridge Academy. This was his chance to break free from everything that had held him back. His father's words echoed in his mind, "Opportunities do not wait, son. When one knocks, you open the door." Jason swallowed hard and met Kingston's gaze. "I'm in." Jason took a deep breath as he stepped toward the helicopter. The moment felt unreal. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been humiliated, expelled, and told he would never succeed. Now, he was about to leave Westbridge Academy with a billionaire who saw something in him no one else had. His father, standing a few feet away, watched him carefully. Jason turned toward him, searching his face for any hesitation, but instead of worry, his father's eyes held something else. Pride. "You always told me to grab opportunities," Jason said. "This is the biggest one I have ever had." His father nodded. "You're right. Go make something of yourself, son. Do not let anyone tell you what you are worth." Jason swallowed hard. He wanted to say more, but the roar of the helicopter blades made conversation difficult. Kingston's assistant gestured for him to climb in. He glanced back one last time at the students, teachers, and the stunned faces of those who had doubted him. Then, without looking back again, he stepped inside. The door closed, and within seconds, the helicopter lifted off. The entire school shrank below him, the crowd of students becoming nothing more than tiny dots. Jason leaned back in his seat, his mind still racing. Kingston sat across from him, his expression unreadable. "You made the right decision." Jason exhaled. "It feels unreal." Kingston nodded. "That feeling will pass soon. You will realize this is exactly where you are meant to be." Jason glanced out the window, watching as they soared above the city. "Where are we going?" Kingston smiled slightly. "To your future." They landed on the rooftop of a skyscraper in the heart of the city. Jason's breath caught as he stepped out. The building was massive, sleek and modern. A giant logo gleamed on the side, Kingston Enterprises. Kingston led him inside, past security checkpoints, and into a high-tech office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. Jason had never seen anything like it. "You are going to learn everything here," Kingston said. "Business. Leadership. Innovation. You are not just a student anymore. You are an apprentice." Jason's heart pounded. "Why me?" Kingston studied him for a moment. "Because you remind me of myself. I was once the boy no one believed in. But someone gave me a chance. Now, it is my turn to do the same for you." Jason felt a lump in his throat. He thought back to the days he spent working on the farm, the struggles, the people who had underestimated him. And now, here he was, standing in the office of one of the most powerful men in the world. Kingston placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is only the beginning. You are going to prove them all wrong." Jason nodded. For the first time in his life, he did not just hope for a better future. He knew it was coming.